Not every mystery is found on land. Some lie hidden beneath crushing pressures and endless darkness.
Deep beneath the warm, sunlit waters of the Pacific lies a realm of darkness, a place so cold, so silent, that it feels completely separated from our world. For decades, explorers believed nothing could survive down there. The conditions are so extreme that the basic building blocks of life should collapse entirely. Bones would melt away. Shells would vanish. Every chemical process life depends on would simply stop. Yet, in 1960, something remarkable happened. At the deepest point of the ocean, a living creature was seen. Life thriving where it had no right to exist. And stranger still, this life wasn't just surviving. It had evolved specifically for this impossible environment. What we know today comes from rare specimens dragged up by robotic probes or caught accidentally in deep sea. Net screechers warped by pressure loss, often destroyed before we ever see their true form. They wash ashore like distorted puzzles from a world we barely understand. The vast abyss beneath our oceans remains humanity's last great frontier. And today, we dive into the deepest of them all, the Mariana Trench. Our story begins a century and a half ago. The British vessel, HMS Challenger, spent 4 years charting the oceans, the first mission of its kind. Crew members labored through burning heat and freezing storms, lowering heavy lead weights thousands of meters down and hauling dripping ropes back up by hand. Every measurement painted the same picture: flat, lifeless plains of mud about 3 to 4 kilometers deep, until one day, alone in the Pacific, over 2,000 kilometers east of the Philippines, they lowered another sounding line, and it didn't stop at 3 kilometers, or 4, or 5. They kept tying on more rope as the weight continued to sink into the unknown beneath their wooden ship. Sailors of that era carried old fears, tales of monstrous things rising from the deep, dragging ships under with writhing tentacles. To them, this bottomless descent must have felt like staring into a myth. Finally, the weight struck bottom over 8 kilometers down. They had discovered the Mariana Trench. Had they drifted slightly westward, they would have found the deepest point of all, Challenger Deep, plunging nearly 11 kilometers into the earth. Mount Everest could slip inside and still be buried 2 kilometers below the surface. The trench stretches 2,500 kilometers long, curving like a scar across the ocean floor, with cliffs and slopes that rise and fall into an empty void spanning thousands of kilometers toward Mexico. Just the Challenger, deep alone, could swallow 5 Grand Canyons. Before we go further, I want to invite you to join our journey here on Voice in the Dark. If you love mysterious places, impossible creatures, and stories hidden beneath the surface of our world, make sure to subscribe. Our episodes dive deeper, go darker, and reveal the parts of Earth that still refuse to be explained. Now let's return to the trench. The Mariana Trench is only one part of a vast, shifting system of fractures around the Pacific. A ring of unstable fault lines paired with a chain of volcanoes known as the Ring of Fire. 90% of the world's earthquakes erupt from this 40,000 scar where colossal slabs of rock grind, collide, and are destroyed. To understand why the trench exists, we look first to the Atlantic. Our planet's surface is split between 2 types of crust: ancient, buoyant continents and younger, thinner ocean floor. Both drift slowly on a sea of hot, molten rock beneath them. Millions of years ago, all continents formed a single land mass. When it tore apart, the Atlantic began to widen. New ocean floor is continually created down its center as magma rises and pushes the continents apart. But if the Americas are drifting westward, they must be squeezing the Pacific smaller. So where does the Pacific's constantly created ocean floor go? The Mariana Trench revealed the answer. It is forced downward beneath surrounding continents, a massive recycling process called subduction. As the Pacific plate plunges beneath the Philippines plate, it bends the Earth's crust downward, creating the deepest chasm on the planet. Volcanoes, earthquakes, and magma vents are all products of this ongoing destruction. This collision of plates produces some of the strangest features on Earth. Giant mud volcanoes that pump hydrogen into the sea, a vent releasing liquid carbon dioxide, a crater filled with molten sulfur found only here and on a moon of Jupiter, boiling mineral-rich geysers believed by some to hold clues to life's origins. But our journey takes us deeper still, beyond the volcanoes and vents, into the trench itself, and finally into Challenger Deep. Exploring these depths is nearly impossible. Pressure increases so violently that at 10 kilometers down, it is over 1,000 times what we feel at the surface, like a ton of weight pressing on a single thumbnail. Most living organisms cannot endure it. Even machines built for the deep can be crushed. In 2014, the nearest submersible imploded during a dive, shattering into fragments. Military submarines barely survive 1,500 meters. To reach the Mariana Trench floor, you need a vessel engineered like a steel miracle. Amazingly, 2 men achieved this in 1960, Don Walsh and Jacques Piccard, aboard the bathyscaphe Trieste, a steel sphere hanging beneath a buoyant tank at 9 kilometers down. A deafening crack echoed through their vessel. One of their thick plexiglass windows had fractured, a failure that could have killed them instantly. But unaware of the damage, they pressed deeper. 3 more kilometers deeper, it took 5 hours to descend. When they reached the bottom, their view was limited to 2 tiny portholes peering through stirred sediment and pitch-black water. Yet, somehow, they saw life. A shape gliding across the seafloor. What they thought was a flatfish is now believed to have been a sea cucumber. One of the few creatures adapted to the crushing abyss after only 20 minutes. They began the long, silent ascent. No one else would attempt the same dive for 50 years, while thousands conquered Everest and 12 walked on the moon. The trench remained nearly untouched until 2012, when James Cameron completed the first solo dive. Since then, more journeys have followed, each one a battle against physics and fear. In 2021, Hamish Harding made the deepest and longest descent. 2 years later, he tragically died aboard the Titan sub during a far shallower dive to the Titanic wreck. A reminder that the deep ocean does not forgive mistakes. On the surface, the trench appears harmless, just empty ocean stretching for hundreds of kilometers. But the moment you sink beneath the waves, everything changes. The sound of the world fades. Sunlight filters into the water like liquid gold. Life here depends entirely on that sunlight.
The Mariana Trench reminds us that our planet still holds secrets too deep for most to see.